Dear friends, today I am going to discuss with you all about sarcoidosis. What is sarcoidosis? Sarcoidosis is a chronic multisystem disease characterized by accumulation of T lymphocytes and mononuclear phagocytes in affected organ. It is characterized by presence of non-caseating epithelioid granuloma and it leads to derangement of normal tissue architecture. Sarcoidosis requires presence of involvement of two or more organs for specific diagnosis. Presence of granuloma is not specific for sarcoidosis. Involvement of lung is most common. Skin, eyes, liver and lymph nodes are also commonly involved. Remission occurs in over half of patients within a few years of diagnosis. Remaining patients develop a chronic disease that lasts for decades. Etiology of sarcoidosis is unknown. It is supposed that it occurs due to exaggerated cellular immune response. Some infectious or non-infectious environmental agents that trigger an inflammatory response in a genetically susceptible host leads to development of sarcoidosis. Incidence and prevalence of sarcoidosis, both sexes, all ages, races and geographical locations have sarcoidosis. Black to white ratio is 3:1 to 17:1. Women slightly more susceptible than men. Prevalence is 20 to 60 per lakh. There are two peaks of sarcoidosis. One is in second decade and the other is in 60 years of age. Most patients present between 20 to 40 years of age. Incidence varies from 1 is to 1 lakh to 64 per lakh worldwide. Pathophysiology. It is assumed that antigen presenting cells and T cell activation leads to cytokine release by macrophage, and the cytokines which are released are interleukin 2, interferon gamma, interleukin 12, interleukin 18 and TNF. The activation of these cytokines lead to granuloma formation, and further on there are two pathways which can get activated. If there is activation of interleukin 10, then it leads to resolution, and if there is activation of TNF and interleukin 8, it leads to fibrosis. Now let us talk about pathophysiology. Accumulation of mononuclear inflammatory cells, T lymphocytes and mononuclear phagocytes occur. It leads to formation of granulomas, aggregates of macrophages, epithelioid cells, multinucleated giant cells like Langerhans or foreign body. Then giant cell may contain inclusion body like Schumann bodies, asteroid bodies, residual bodies, for example refractile calcium containing inclusions. Organ dysfunction in sarcoidosis mostly results from the accumulated inflammatory cells distorting the architecture of the affected tissues. Clinical manifestations. The organ most commonly involved is lung. It is involved in 95% of cases. Skin is involved in 25 to 35%. Eyes in 25%. extrathoracic lymph nodes in 15%, liver in 12%, spleen in 7%, CNS in 7%, and 2% patients have cardiac involvement. Now, when we talk of presentation, acute group has two syndromes. One is Lofgren syndrome, the other is Hereford-Waldenstrom syndrome. Lofgren syndrome is characterized by erythema nodosum, bilateral hilar lymphadenopathy, and arthritis at ankle, knee, wrist, or elbow joint. While the other one, which is Hereford-Waldenstrom syndrome, is characterized by fever, parotid enlargement, anterior uveitis, and facial nerve palsy. Insidious form of sarcoidosis usually associated with respiratory complaints without constitutional symptoms. Constitutional features are fatigue, fever, night sweat, weight loss, and pyrexia of unknown origin. When we talk of lungs, the lung symptoms are dyspnea on exertion and dry cough, chest discomfort and wheezing, hemoptysis and sputum production is rare. 95% patients are having abnormal chest X-ray. Primarily, it is an interstitial lung disease. 1 to 5% patients may have unilateral pleural effusion. Pulmonary arterial hypertension is seen in 5% patients. Rarely, pleural plaques, nodules, and pneumothorax can be seen. Pulmonary aspergilloma and opportunistic infection can also occur. In chest X-ray, we can get 4 stages. Stage 1 is bilateral hilar lymphadenopathy. Stage 2 is hilar lymphadenopathy plus pulmonary infiltrate. Stage 3 is pulmonary infiltrate without bilateral hilar lymphadenopathy, and stage 4 is pulmonary fibrosis, which is characterized by fibrotic bands, bulla, hilar retraction, bronchiectasis, and diaphragm tenting. Stages do not represent chronological evolution. Stage 1 and 2 have 90% and 70% spontaneous resolution. Stage 3 have 90% progressive disease, while stage 4 is end stage lung disease. Now let's see this X-ray abnormality. Stage 0 is normal chest radiograph. We can see in stage 1 there is hilar or mediastinal nodal enlargement only. The lung parenchyma is absolutely normal. In stage 2 there is nodal enlargement and parenchymal disease both. Stage 3 we can see there is no hilar lymphadenopathy, only parenchymal disease, while in stage 4 we can see a lot of fibrotic bands and traction bronchiectasis. So that is a stage of pulmonary fibrosis, end stage lung disease. This is a chest X-ray showing bilateral hilar and paratracheal lymph node enlargement. When we talk of skin involvement, there are isolated lesions or crops of macule, papule, and plaques and nodules. Site is nape of neck, upper back, extremity, and trunk. Hyper or hypopigmented lesions may be there. Keloid formation is common, and we can get subcutaneous nodule. Most common non-specific lesion is erythema nodosum or transient rash. Erythema nodosum is a non-specific paniculitis and considered to be hallmark of acute sarcoidosis. EN lesions are elevated red tender nodule present on the anterior aspect of leg. Lupus pernio is a complex of involvement of bridge of nose, area beneath eyes and cheeks. It is a diagnostic of chronic form. Maculopapular rashes are most common chronic form. Skin biopsy is diagnostic and shows non-caseating granuloma. The picture 1 is showing lupus pernio and the picture 2 is showing EN lesions. Eyes. 25 to 80% patients have involvement of eyes. 2/3 of patients have anterior uveitis. Chronic anterior uveitis is more common than acute. Posterior segment involved in 30% of cases. 10 to 15% have both anterior and posterior segment involvement. Symptoms include blurring of vision, tearing and photophobia. Conjunctival and lacrimal involvement lead to keratoconjunctivitis sicca, and in some cases it may result in blindness. Talking of lymph nodes, intrathoracic lymph nodes are enlarged in 75 to 90%, usually hilar and paratracheal groups. Peripheral lymphadenopathy is very common, particularly the cervical, axillary, epitrochlear and inguinal lymph nodes. Lymph nodes are non-adherent with firm and rubbery texture, painless and does not ulcerate. Sometimes intra-abdominal lymph nodes are enlarged. Bone marrow and spleen may show lymphopenia, anemia, splenomegaly in 5 to 10%. Splenic biopsy reveals granuloma. When we talk of CNS involvement, 5 to 10% patients have neurosarcoidosis. There is cranial nerve involvement, basilar meningitis, myelopathy, anterior hypothalamic disease with diabetes insipidus. Some patients may have seizure and cognitive changes. Then musculoskeletal involvement, there can be sarcoid arthropathy, which can be either inflammatory or non-inflammatory. Symmetric ankle arthritis is common. We can also see bursitis, enthesopathy, dactylitis and nodular tenosynovitis. Sarcoid myopathy may have 3 different patterns of involvement. If it is chronic myopathy, it is painless, insidiously progressive with muscle weakness. Nodular myopathy present with palpable, localized tumor-like nodular swelling within muscles. Acute myositis is the third form of presentation, which is painful. Other systems involved are liver, present with elevated alkaline phosphatase and transaminase levels, hypercalcemia in 10% and hypercalciuria in around 40% of the cases. Renal involvement is having granuloma in kidney, tubulointestinal nephritis and renal stones, rarely may present as pseudotumor. In heart, we can get cardiomyopathy or arrhythmias, which is characterized by heart block, ventricular arrhythmias. When we talk of elderly onset sarcoidosis, it states the condition which is defined as occurrence of sarcoid in people aged 65 years or more. They present with fatigue, uveitis and skin lesions. EN lesions and pulmonary involvement are less common. Complications, usually it is a self-limiting disorder, but some patient may develop paraplegia, renal failure or blindness. Now let us come how will we investigate. The investigations are chest X-ray, CT scan, gallium-67 scanning for detection of inflammatory activity, PET scan and serum ACE. Serum ACE is having low sensitivity and specificity. Elevated levels in 60% patients with acute disease and 20% in chronic. Elevation more than 50% of normal can be seen in sarcoidosis, leprosy, miliary TB, Coucher's disease, and hyperthyroidism. So, it is non-specific. In CT chest, we can have varied findings, and the CT scan chest is suggestive and characteristic of interstitial lung disease and with involvement of hilar lymph nodes. How will we diagnose if we suspect it is sarcoid? If it is possible sarcoid, what will we do? We will consider an chest X-ray to see for lymphadenopathy, and if we are having consistent skin lesions like EN lesion, lupus pernio, maculopapular rhesus, uveitis, optic neuritis, hypercalcemia, hypercalciuria, and seventh cranial nerve palsy, then we can go for biopsy of affected organ if possible. If not possible, we can go for bronchoscopic biopsy and we can detect granuloma, which is confirmatory for the diagnosis of sarcoidosis. If there is granuloma, we can have different results. If there is no granuloma, means it is negative, then we must think of alternate diagnosis. And if there is no alternative diagnosis, then look for serum ACE, which is more than 2 times, BAL lymphocyte, which is more than 2 times, and PANDA and lambda sign, then it favors the diagnosis of sarcoidosis. PANDA sign is positive gallium scan with increased activity in parotid and lacrimal gland. Lambda sign is increased activity in right paratracheal and left hilar area. Bronchoalveolar lavage shows increased percentage of lymphocytes. CD4 to CD8 ratio is increased more than 3.5. If it is more than 3.5, is strongly supportive of sarcoidosis but less sensitive. This is how we see PANDA sign and lambda sign. PANDA is parotid involvement and lambda is paratracheal and hilar lymph node enlargement. Then there is Quim-Sheets bath procedure, which is specific for diagnosis, but it is being rarely used nowadays. In this, we give intradermal injection of specially prepared tissue derived from spleen of non-sarcoid patients, and the tissue is biopsied 4 to 6 weeks after injection. Presence of non-caseating granuloma is highly specific. There are newer biomarkers which help. These biomarkers are ACE, which is serum ACE level, serum interleukin 2R for disease severity and extranodal disease, serum amyloid A, BALF beta 1 antitrypsin, and chitotriosidase for assessment of disease progression. Now we have diagnosed the disease. We must know the prognosis. Many patients' disease resolves in 2 to 5 years. Poor prognostic factors are age more than 40 years, African American ethnicity, pulmonary features such as stage 3 and 4, means presence of fibrosis is having bad prognosis, presence of lupus pernio and cutaneous sarcoid, those requiring high dose of steroid, patients with renal calculi due to hypercalcemia, and cardiac and neurological disease. These are the points which suggest poorer prognosis. Now, how will we manage? For acute disease, if we have minimal symptoms of neurological, cardiac, ocular, and calcium metabolism, if yes, systemic therapy is required. If there are no symptoms of such organ involvement, then no treatment is needed. If there is single organ disease like only anterior eye or localized skin, then topical steroid. If no, then systemic therapy. Acute disease. If the acute disease is symptomatic and there is multiple organ involvement, then treat with glucocorticoid, which is mainly prednisolone. Taper to less than 10 milligram in less than 6 months. If cannot be tapered, then consider for methotrexate, azathioprine and hydroxychloroquine therapy. If the disease is chronic, then glucocorticoid is started, and if glucocorticoid is tolerated, the dose should be reduced to less than 10 milligram per day. No alternate agent. Glucocorticoid, if not tolerated or not effective, then only use alternate agent like methotrexate, azathioprine, SCQS, leflunomide, minocycline. If not effective, then we are left with the option of using infliximab, cyclophosphamide, thalidomide. Criteria for glucocorticoid therapy are: if patient is having disabling symptoms like fever, arthralgia, cough, dyspnea and chest discomfort; if there is organ dysfunction, if there is organ derangement like enlarged lymph node, spleen, parotid swelling; abnormal serum tests like hypercalcemia and progressively elevated liver enzyme. Ancillary criteria are elevated lavage lymphocyte, serum ACE elevation, abnormal gallium 67 scan. Thank you. Thank you so much for your patience hearing. Thank you.